Last week, I had my 10-year anniversary in the corporate world, starting off as a recent graduate in an entry-level engineering job, all the way through now being a project manager working in programs. So today, I wanted to share the top 10 lessons, not just corporate lessons, not just work lessons, but life lessons in general that I've learned in the past 10 years. Lesson number 1, you're going to work hard. You're going to need to work hard in order to find success. There's no way around that concept. However, you can be mindful about the type of tasks that you work in and make sure that you have a higher level of return on investment. Something my therapist said the other day was el qué, no el cuánto. The what, not the how much. So make sure that although you're working really hard and you're putting in those hours, you're ensuring that you're putting in those hours on things that will give you a high return on your investment, meaning that those hours will take you to the goals that you're planning for and that you're not just putting in this work for nothing. Lesson number 2, don't miss out on life experiences because of work. Have all those life experiences. Take all your PTO early on. I know there's this very high anxiety around saving your PTO for emergency reasons, which obviously is a very reasonable thing to do, and you should probably always have a little contingency plan there. However, take your PTO now because it only gets harder to take it later. Lesson number 3, set a path for yourself. Have a strategy for how you're going to get to whatever goal you have in mind, in whatever time frame you have in mind. Always have it written down, know exactly the steps that you want to take in order to get there. But be okay with changes, with little detours that you didn't think were going to happen. And also be okay when all of a sudden you realize that your goals have changed and now you have to remake that entire plan and start over. That's something that's definitely happened to me a couple of times. I wanted to be an engineer and I thought I was going to be engineering things for the rest of my life, doing the actual calculations, figuring out how things get constructed. And as it turned out, as much as I loved engineering and still do, it wasn't my strong suit. It wasn't what I was the best at. And so I shifted a little bit, took a little detour and ended up somewhere that made a lot more sense for me. And I continue to listen to those little whispers that make little shifts every once in a while. And I realize, oh, I have a new goal here. I know where I want to go from here. And it might have been different from where I thought I was going to be 5 years ago. Lesson number 4. And this one might be a little specific to myself and not to many others. It might not be too relatable. But learn to forgive life for potentially starting you at a little bit of a disadvantage than others. Learn to forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know. And for not having it all together, taking a little bit longer to figure it out. I had to learn to be okay with my starting point and figure out what I needed to do to make sure that I got myself to wherever I needed to be, even if potentially I started a lot of steps behind the people that I was competing with, people that were my colleagues, people that were my peers. And essentially, I just had to forgive life for that and accept that, you know what, this is where I started and I just need to figure out how to move forward. Everyone starts from a different place, and a lot of us have a place of a disadvantage, and a lot of us don't. A lot of us have a lot of privilege, fortunately, but we're all working with our own little internal struggle, internal demons, and we all have a different place to start from. And we essentially just have to forgive life for giving us our starting point, move on, and figure out how to move from there. All those little different starting points and disadvantages make up a lot of who you are. And like for me, it gave me a lot of resilience and I'm incredibly thankful for that. So a big lesson for me was really, yeah, it sucked having to start as an undocumented immigrant, as someone whose English was a second language, and poverty, etc., XYZ, all these other things, right? But those aren't the things that are going to define me, and they're not going to stop me from moving in my career, because I'm smart enough that I can figure out what it is I need to figure out to get to the point where I need to be, even if it takes me a little bit longer. Lesson number 5, make yourself a priority. This has a lot more to do with work-life balance and making sure you say yes to experiences. It's about learning about taking care of yourself. And when I think of taking care of myself, there's 3 specific things that I think about, and those are my body, my mind, my spirit. Whatever it is that your body, your mind, your spirit needs to be healthy and thriving, do those things. You know, the usual ones are exercising, ensuring you're eating healthy, getting some sunlight, going outside and breathing the fresh air. For me, I like to throw in taking care of your mind through, meditation, mindfulness, therapy, whatever it is that you need to do. You are only going to present yourself at work, in life, whatever you're doing, at your best if you take care of yourself first. Next lesson, big one for me, was knowing my worth, or I had to learn my worth and my value and the values of my skills. Learning the value of your skills and learning how much you should get compensated. And if you don't think you're getting compensated fairly, then going to the place that is going to pay you and compensate you for those skills. There are millions of jobs out there, and skills are valued differently in different places. And knowing that you can go and find a place that will compensate you fairly is important. Knowing when to move on is important. Lesson number 7, I've actually just recently made a video on this, but a big one that I learned was emotional intelligence and how much that impacts your career as a whole, but also your entire life as a whole. Lesson number 8, financial education. Go get it. We don't get financial education in school, in high school, in elementary school. We don't grow with financial education. And in college, there are potential classes that you could take for financial education, but they're not set as part of your curriculum. You really have to be very, very bright and when you're young and stupid to know to take those classes. For me, one of the biggest things that I had to learn right out of school was financial education. Something that I knew nothing about, and something that I was at a disadvantage as well, because being an immigrant, my parents didn't know anything about it either. So I had to go and find that financial education on my own, learning about, even the very, very fundamental things like how do banks work, how do rates work, and then going into what's 401k, what's investment, how do you buy a house, what's a mortgage, what are loans, things like that. So I had to learn that all on my own. And honestly, there's so many books on it. There's so many free content out there on financial education that there is no reason why you shouldn't be financially educated. My next lesson is nothing is unfigure-outable. I don't think that's a word. But what I mean with that is you can figure out anything that you want to learn, anything that is complicated, anything that seems a little confusing to you right now, you can figure that out by learning from others, learning from a book, learning from YouTube. I used to have these very, very big mental blocks where I would see people doing, something specific, and I would think, wow, how amazing are they? There's no way I could ever figure out to do what they do. And that is a lie. That is a lie that your brain is telling yourself. Really, the biggest hurdle, the biggest obstacle here are those mental blocks that we give ourselves or that we grow up with, and they really hold us back. I had to learn that anything you want to do, you can figure it out. There's a way to figure it out. And there's a way that one day you're going to have an epiphany and be like, oh, wow, this is so simple. I know it really well now. I understand it. I could teach it to anyone in simpler terms because I really, really, truly understand it. Obviously there's a lot of things that are way complicated and require years and years of studying to learn it, but it's still possible. My last one is growing is painful. We are in this never-ending cycle of learning and self-improvement, and a lot of that time it means growing out of things that used to give us happiness that we no longer find joy in. We can grow out of people, things, priorities, even mindsets. We can definitely grow out of mindsets. And sometimes it feels like you're losing a little bit of yourself, but really you're just creating space for you to become more of who you are. And you're creating space for you to do more of the things that you want to do that align more with who you want to become. So that's it. 10 lessons from my last 10 years in my corporate career. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.